Hello, this is Talk, 100 Days of Animation, Season 1, Day 8. And where I spend 30 minutes, minimum of 30 minutes every day, making some sort of progress on my animated short film. I've been spending a lot of time in Illustrator lately. What we're doing is building puppets and things like that so that I can make them move in After Effects later. And I wanted to talk about something while you're watching me finish this up. So what you're seeing me here is do some light and shadow as I kind of organize things. And you'll see that it's not an interesting pose because I want to be able to articulate this later. And so I'm going to add joints and control points and parent-child relationships to each of these different objects later. And I'll talk about that as I do that. But that's what you're seeing right now. So I wanted to talk about something that I find really interesting in my own kind of artistic journey, which I think I'm really on the early side of things. From an artistic standpoint, I have only been doing this for a couple of years. In school, really early on, like kindergarten, first grade, I became known as like an artist, right? And I started to self-identify as an artist. And part of that was that I was scared to fail at art because of that. And I remember one of my dad's friends, I got really excited about this cartooning book, and it was like a super thick book. Like I was like 6 or 7, right? First or second grade. And I was like, hey, look at this. Cause he taught art at high school. And so I looked up to him at the time and I said, look at this. I'm going to go through this book. And I had planned on going through it step by step. And he looked at it, flipped through it for like 2 seconds, just flipped through it and said, that's not good enough. And in my 6-year-old mind, I thought, well, heck, man, if that's not good enough, then nothing I'm going to be able to do is going to be good enough. That's a super thick book. That's the biggest book I've ever seen. So it was like really discouraging. And so I kind of stopped drawing in general. I got excited later on, a couple years later, I bought a sketchbook with my own money. And it was like a perfect bound sketchbook. And I brought it home, and there was another adult who said, oh, you better not mess up in that. And I was like, why? Well, it's like a nice book. Like you better draw really well in there because it's in a book. And I thought, what if I screw it up? And so I literally didn't draw a single thing in that sketchbook. Anyway, years go by, I got into graphic design, and I did graphic design and art direction and kind of marketing direction for a number of years, for about a decade after college and whatnot. And I got kind of tired of it. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to draw again. And so I thought of what is the best way to make sure that I draw every day? And I was like, a webcomic. You know, if you're making comic books, you're doing a lot of freaking drawing. The average comic book artist, they draw so much. If you think about like an illustrator, you know, they're putting out a lot of work, right? A comic book artist, they're putting out like sometimes 6 to 9 drawings per panel, or not per panel, but per page because of each of the panels. Anyway, so I started doing that. That was just a couple of years ago. And I did that, and it is terrible, bad. Don't look it up. It's bad. I might take it off the internet. Anyway, but I got a lot of drawing out. I was able to do about 60 pages. And got a little bit better at the end there. I was getting a little bit more familiar. I started to do some figure drawing and things like that. And so at the end of all that, because I was teaching, I was on a temporary 1-year contract that got renewed every year, but I wanted to get on a 10-year contract. And so just to be able to apply to a 10-year contract, I had to get a master's degree. So got a master's degree in illustration design, kind of the combination of illustration and graphic design. And I had some cool experiences there. It was really good. Most of the classes were actually pretty beneficial. One or two of them I felt like was a complete and total waste of money, and they were super expensive classes if you've ever done postgraduate work. In any case, what I was still really struggling with in my illustration, in my art, was kind of my voice, my style. And I don't think you should seek a style. I don't think you should, try to be a specific thing. And I'll tell you why. Because I really admire the kind of painterly style that you see out there that looks like legit paint. It doesn't have the line work and stuff like showing. It's not like flats and things like that. And I love that. And I tried to do that. I tried to do kind of what I would consider like a realism or photorealism situation for a long time. And I was constantly disappointed with what I was producing because it looked bad. It wasn't who I was. That's not what I was. And I remember being in this class, and Mohamed Danawi was my professor. Great guy, runs Illozu, which is kind of an artist collective agency. And he told me, he said, your portfolio looks like it was done by like 5 different people. Like you have no common thread here. Like there's nothing. Like when you're not worried about things, what is it that you do? And I said, this is kind of my default. And he's like, that looks awesome. Do that. Do only that. And it was kind of what you're seeing here. Kind of a comic book style, real thick line work on the outside edge, flat colors, and I tell you what, that was one of the most freeing things for someone to give me permission to be the artist that I was. And I still am annoyed with myself that I needed outside validation to that. But sometimes you just need somebody in your life to show you that you're chasing the wrong thing. I didn't even realize that I was doing this. I didn't even realize that I was trying to be something that I'm not. I was trying to be an oil painter in digitals and traditional inks and whatnot. I wasn't using oils, but I was trying to do that. I was trying to have that look, and it just looked bad. It just looked terrible. And anyway, he had mentioned to another student in that class, he said, I have watched so many students try to chase this ideal of realism when that is not what's inside of them. That's not their personal style. That's not what that is. They're not a realist. And I know a ton of artists who are, and they do incredible work, and it's really impressive and it's amazing. And I'm glad that there's artists out there like that, but that's not who I am. And the fact that I've finally been able to come up to grips with the idea that I'm different than that, I have a different voice, and that my style is never going to be hung up in museums. It's never going to be, something that ends up, kind of in a hoity-toity environment, which isn't ever what I wanted anyway. But I just was always impressed with the ability to render light and shadow in a photorealistic way. But you know what? There are cameras and there's Photoshop to do those manipulations. And a lot of what I've been able to produce since then, it's only been a year or two. Let's see. November was a year since my master's was done. Is that right? No, I finished in November. No, I can't remember. It's been a year. Getting your master's or a PhD or something is crazy, and your brain melts, and there's like this gap, this hole in time that you can't remember, especially if you are doing postgraduate work while you are working full time. Anyway, crazy. So that I didn't sleep a lot. I don't sleep a lot now, as you can tell. But so that's that. Anyway, so I guess my takeaway from this whole rant is like, be the artist that you are, and don't try to be something that you're not. Be better than you are. Improve and never stop getting better. But don't worry so much about what you're not, and be who you are and be the best version of yourself. So now I've got my puppet done. I am going to import him into After Effects tomorrow, and we're going to make a move. So we'll catch you later. This has been Illatalk, 100 Days of Animation. I am Cory Kerr, and this was day 8 of 100. That is a long time to go. As always, you can find my work at corykerr.com, CORYKERR.com. Leave me a comment to let me know that you are watching or listening. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them if I can. And hit me up on Twitter at Cory Kerr and Instagram. And we'll catch you later. Bye.